الله ربنا هو الإله، له من الأسماء ما اصطفاه، الواحد الحي كذا المليك، والملك المالك لا شريك. الله ربنا هو الإله، له من الأسماء ما اصطفاه، الواحد الحي كذا المليك.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Leo tutaifungua jalsa yetu hii tukianza na suratul Fatiha, alafu tutafuata talbia, itafuata na sura insha Allah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
أحسنتم أستاذ موسى جزاك الله خيرا. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In our discussion about the rulings pertaining to Hajj, we saw in the last session that Hajj is a type of dain and an obligation that we have to pay back. It is a favor that has been done on us by God, and therefore He has an obligation on us. In response, He expects us to respond to His call and invitation to visit His house. The Hajjul Bayt, the pilgrimage to visit the house of God, the ancestral first structure on the earth, which represents the pure concept of Tawheed, the total devotion of man to God and God alone, which is the secret of success. Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. If you want one secret of success, and that is to accept and to submit and to devote your whole life to the absolute one being. Masjid al-Haram, Kaaba, represents that concept of Tawheed. It was built by the great monotheistic prophet, the iconoclast, who smashed the other idols. And this is the house which represents in different aspects how in our lives, in our political, social, cultural, economic life, we can focus all our energies towards this one God, the Hajjul Bayt. And then we discussed about the timing of this obligation. It's just obligatory once in a lifetime for whosoever is capable in his health, in his wealth, and if the path is open. Today I would like to concentrate on the issue of taqleed, which will ensure that once we know Hajj is wajib, the pilgrimage has to be done according to the procedure shown to us by the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the explanation and the interpretation given to us by the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. For that we need to understand the concept of taqleed. Just a quick reminder, this exercise that we begin with, and that is the practice of the Arabic pronunciation, one way to appreciate its importance is to realize that Hajj is an act of ibadah where we will be collectively from different parts of the world performing their ibadah in a similar unified manner. And the unification will be the recitation which we'll do all together, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, whatever color or language or ethnic background that we come from. And Hajj basically is an act of ibadah because the Quran in Surah Baqarah ayah 196 says, وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ. And you must perform and you must begin the performance, continue the performance till its completion of the Hajj and the Umrah for the sake of Allah. Qurbatan ilallah. Qurbatan ilallah means that this is an act of ibadah whereby we wish to get closer to God and to win His pleasure. This is an ibadah which includes the talbiyah to start with, includes the tawaf, includes the salatul tawaf, includes the sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and the other ibadat. It's a whole package made up of several small components, each one of which is an ibadah, but they are performed in the Arabic language. The unifying factor is the Arabic language, and therefore it's important for us, if we don't know the proper pronunciation, and we can change ourselves and improve ourselves and develop the correct pronunciation, we don't do it, the recitation becomes improper and therefore invalid. Once one portion of the whole ibadah is improper, the whole of the rest ibadah becomes invalid. So I wish to now perform the Hajj. The Hajj has become wajib on me. I have been invited by God. I have heard the call. I wish to respond. I am healthy, I am wealthy, the path is open, the facilities are available. So I want to go for Hajj. I cannot do it any which way that I want. I must follow the procedure in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ has done it. But this is there in the Quran, this is mentioned in the Hadith, which is a specialist area. So it's important that we identify the expert whose verdicts and fatwas we will be following in the performance of the Hajj. The Holy Prophet ﷺ, the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they did the Hajj in a particular manner. And that manner was the best. There are different ways of doing Hajj. When the Holy Prophet declared his mission, the Jahiliyyah Arabs who were the progeny of Ismail alayhi salam, they were also doing Hajj, but they're doing it in a distorted way. Some of the right elements were there, some wrong elements were there. So around the Kaaba, they would come and whistle and clap. The Quran mentions in Surah Anfal, this is wrong, this is not ibadah. Sometimes they would come and perform ibadah under certain circumstances by taking off their clothes. Wrong ibadah. They would keep idols on the Kaaba. Wrong ibadah. They would keep idols on Safa and Marwa. Wrong ibadah. They would distinguish between Quraysh and non-Quraysh who came for Hajj when they went to Arafah or went to Muzdalifah, the movement, the timing. No, the month of the year in which they did the Hajj. So yes, they changed that. It was not in Dhul Hijjah anymore. So yes, they went through the mechanical procedure of Hajj, but the procedure was incorrect. And therefore the Holy Prophet ﷺ reintroduces and reinstates the original Hajj that was performed by Ibrahim alayhi salam by the guidance and inspiration through Jibreel from God. So we need to be aware that if we don't do the Hajj in the proper way and we make mistakes and we make errors, some of the mistakes that we will do in Hajj may be excusable. So for example, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, on the day of Eid, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, when you come to Mina from Muzdalifah, there are 3 acts of ibadah that have to be performed. You have to stone the shaitan, you have to slaughter the animal, and you have to shave. This is how the Prophet did it. Unfortunately, some of the Sahaba who were maybe new converts or who did not bother to learn properly the procedure, some of them mixed up the sequence. instead of shaving after slaughtering, they shaved before slaughtering, for example. So when the Prophet was informed about it, he says, doesn't matter. They've made a mistake, they've forgotten, it was out of ignorance, God will forgive. So some errors in the performance of the Hajj are excusable under certain circumstances, but provided the Sharia tells us, yes, it is excusable. Some of the errors are not excusable. Some ignorance is not excusable. So for example, when the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam themselves tell us that no, this mistake you have to repeat. For example, person goes to miqat and crosses the limit of miqat without entering into the state of ihram. Batil. If you realize it wherever after miqat, whether you have reached the haram or not, you have entered the haram or not, you have reached Masjid al-Haram or not, whenever you realize you have not done and entered into ihram at the miqat, please go back. It's batil. Or for example, person does tawaf, but without being in the state of tahara, sorry, repeat the tawaf with the tahara. This mistake is not excusable. Or no, somebody, God forbid, in the ihram has a small amount of najasa in the dress, in salah, excusable. In ihram, not excusable. But these details we only come to know after we refer to the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So we cannot claim that my niyyah is good, my intention was pure, I wanted to get close to God, I made a mistake, inshallah Allah will forgive me. No, sorry, it doesn't work like that. You can't say, I took a mobile, I want to charge it, I put the numbers down, inshallah my niyyah is pure. Mobile, work, please, work. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. There is a procedure to be followed. There are numbers to be typed in. And some of them are excusable, some are not excusable. So it's very important for us to know how to do the procedure correctly. So we have to refer to the experts. The referral to the expert is known as taqleed. Especially if one knows that amongst the different experts, there are more than one experts, and between the experts there are differences of opinion. So in the case of Hajj also there are differences of opinion between the mujtahids. For example, if you have dayn, some mujtahids allow you, even if you have dayn, you can still go for Hajj, provided you can pay off when you come back. Some mujtahids say, no, if you have a dayn, you better pay it off before the Hajj becomes wajib on you. So you'll have to determine which mujtahid you're following. Or no, Masjid Shajara. Some mujtahids say Masjid Shajara, when you want to enter into ihram, you have to enter inside the masjid. Some say no, you don't have to enter inside the masjid. You can also do it outside the masjid so long as you are in the locality and neighborhood known as the Masjid Shajara neighborhood. Or no, in the prohibitions in the state of ihram, there are differences of opinion. Can I take shade at night? Can I not take shade at night for the males? Is it wajib for the women to cover their face or not to cover their face in the state of ihram? There are differences of opinion. So whenever there is a difference of opinion between the top mujtahids, in that situation then you must determine who is the most learned amongst the mujtahid to follow him. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu in our daily lives, whenever we want some activity or task to be done and to be accomplished, which needs an expert's opinion, direction, guidance, instruction. So let's say you've got a medical problem. You refer to one doctor, he says, no, your medical problem, I can solve you with medication. You refer to another one, he says, no, surgery is required. You refer to a third one, he says, no, x-rays and X-ray therapy should be enough. With the different modalities of treatment. You are not the expert. Well, how do you determine which is the best way? Which is the safest way? Which is the one with the least risk? Who are you qualified to receive which type of treatment? Do you have complications? Which modality of treatment is going to cause more complications in you than what you already have? This is an expert field. These doctors study 10 years, 20 years. They work for 10, 20 years. They gain experience. They face different challenges. And there are doctors who, on the spur of the moment, something goes wrong, they know exactly what to do, how to save the life. Who will you trust your life to? It's a life-threatening sickness that you are afflicted with, and you have to make a decision. I'm going to trust my life into whose hands? Obviously, you will want to make a choice whereby you refer to the best in the field. Yes, if the best is not available for whatever reason, too expensive, too far away, or too busy, you don't have the time, sawa, in those exception circumstances, you can refer to the next best. But if you have the opportunity, you must make sure you refer to the best. This is how the foundation of our life is normally in all other affairs. The same reasoning we come and apply in the religious affairs. So we need to know who is the most learned. In our lifetime, we may have determined who is the most learned mujtahid. But that mujtahid was already old when I started doing his taqleed, for example. And then in my lifetime, he dies. So what do I do now? Do I stop taqleed immediately on the death of the deceased? Or no, do I continue? Or no, do I have a choice? What do I do? Immediately after the death of the previous mujtahid, I stop my taqleed. Immediately I have to refer to the living. Amongst the living, who is the most learned? And then I go to the most learned and I ask, excuse me, what do I do? Do I continue with the fatwas of the deceased? Or do I close that chapter and I refer to totally? Or no, do you give me a choice? Or no, do you give me conditions under which I'm allowed to, or I must continue with the deceased or not? Because in our lifetime, there are many adults. Those who are young amongst us may have started with the taqleed of the currently living mujtahids. But some of the middle-aged people or elderly people definitely must have made taqleed of mujtahids who have already passed away. And therefore this masala is important. Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah protect all our maraji', he says that the status of the permissibility to do taqleed of the deceased is the same as the status of the permissibility of doing taqleed of the living. So just because he has died doesn't mean he's disqualified from being followed. The living is telling us that. So we can follow the dead. So when am I allowed to follow the dead? So he says you have to check. The criteria is who is the most learned. You have to make a comparison. Amongst all the living, who was the most learned? So you determine this mujtahid was the most learned. You went to him. He's saying, now you check, compared to the living and the deceased, who is the more learned? Either the deceased is more learned, or no, the living is more learned compared to the deceased, or no, they're the same. Three possible scenarios, there's no fourth. So if you determine after your investigation, your inquiry, you ask from the second degree experts about the top degree experts, who is more learned, the living, the deceased. If you determine that the deceased is still considered by the second degree experts to be more learned than the living mujtahid, and if you know, yes, there are differences in fatwa between the deceased and the living mujtahid, then according to the fatwa of the most learned of the living mujtahid, you must continue with the deceased. You have no choice. In as much as you had no choice, amongst the living you had to choose the most learned. The most learned is telling you if the deceased is more learned, continue with the deceased. Opposite scenario. You check with the second degree experts and they say that no, over time, with more research, with more experience, with more challenges, the living has become now more learned than the deceased who may have been his teacher. Then no, in that situation, you must close the chapter of the deceased. You must turn fully now to the living, most learned living mujtahid. Scenario number 3. The second degree experts are saying, no, now the deceased was a teacher, the living was a student, but gradually over time they've become almost the same. So then you have a choice to either continue with the deceased or turn to the living, no problem. So I want to now continue with the deceased because I have checked and determined and ascertained that, let's say, the deceased is qualified to be more learned according to the second degree experts. But when I did start taqleed, I never went to Hajj when the deceased was alive. I don't know his Masail about Hajj. Oh yes, I did attend some Hajj Masail, but hey, I forgot about them now. Or no, I did learn. I remember some, I don't remember some. Oh yes, I went for Hajj once in the lifetime of the deceased. I did act upon them, but some Masail I didn't act upon them. So is there any extra condition for me to refer to the deceased to continue on his fatwa or not? Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani says that taqleed means, did you make the niyyah to follow? If yes, you made the niyyah to follow. Even if after you made the niyyah to follow the deceased, you never got the chance to learn the Masail, or you got the chance to learn but you forgot, or you got the chance to learn and you remembered but you didn't act, or you did learn and you didn't forget and you didn't act but you acted wrongly. In all these situations, he says, no, you must continue and follow the deceased, even if you haven't learned, even if you don't recall, even if you haven't yet acted according to his fatwa. The only situation where you will have to refer to the living, most learned amongst the living, and leave the deceased is those situations where the deceased had no fatwa. Because there's a totally new situation that has arisen after the demise of the deceased. Well, in that case, you must refer now to the most learned of the living. So you're telling me I have to identify who is the most learned. I investigate, I inquire, I check from my friends, I check from the local alim, I try to access on my ziyarat trips or through my means of communication from the second degree experts through second-hand, third-hand information. But the information I'm getting about who is the best is not that clear. So what do? So once I know that definitely there is difference of opinion between the mujtahids and you make your inquiry, if you are told that amongst the top living, they are almost equal, then in that situation, no problem. After all your investigations, most of the second degree experts, if they're telling you they're almost equal at the top level, then you have a choice, no problem. You decide which of the top level mujtahids you want to follow. No, you are told, no, amongst the top 5, definitely these 2 are the better ones. The other 3 are a bit lower. So then you go for the top 2. If you can identify amongst them who is the better one, definitely follow. But let's say you're not able to identify. You're told, yes, amongst the 5, these 2 are better. But amongst these 2, you can't identify who is the better, who is the more learned. Then here, if you can, then you must do ihtiyat. That means check the fatwa of both these 2 top learned mujtahids. Whichever's fatwa is more ihtiyat, act on the ihtiyat. So for example, one of the top level mujtahid says, for the men in the state of ihram, it is not allowed to take shade even at night when you're traveling. The other mujtahid, the top level, second one, says no problem, you're allowed to. Ihtiyat is you must not take shade. But sometimes to act on ihtiyat is difficult. It's extremely difficult to act on the ihtiyat. Then in that situation, you continue your inquiry. Even the slight probability you get that of the 2, one is maybe more better than the other, enough. Follow that person. Life has to go ahead. You can't get confused. You can't say, I don't know. I better act on both fatwas. But both fatwas are difficult to act in all situations. No problem. The way open is, make your further inquiries. If you get any satisfying reason that one is probably more better than the other, that's enough for you to follow the taqleed. In the past, we have come across situations where some people get tempted to switch taqleed from one mujtahid to another. So it's my duty to warn you that you cannot switch for the sake of convenience. Oh, this mujtahid gives a fatwa based on which therefore the parents will do Eid on one day and the children will do Eid on another day. No, that's not an excuse for changing taqleed. Oh, it is easier to act on the fatwa of one mujtahid, for example, regarding the najasa of Ahlul Kitab. No, that's not an excuse. The fatwas, they suit my preferences. No, that is not an excuse. So a youth says, I wish to get married, but the father of the virgin girl is refusing. I'm looking for a mujtahid, anyone out there who allows the virgin to get married without the permission of the father. No, that is not allowed to switch taqleed. I can't access. I know the mujtahid is there, but I can't access him. If you're telling us in 10, 20 years ago, sawa, but nowadays it's not difficult to access. If not directly, at least through some others who have easy access to the mujtahids. I don't have printed fatwas. No, nowadays everything is online, digitized. Yes, I don't like this mujtahid because some of his wakils and some of his representatives are, no, they're not good people. They're corrupt. Excuse me, what would you say to Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, who appointed Ibn Ziyad as his governor? Later on, when Ibn Ziyad was discovered to be corrupt, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam told him, I've got reports about your financial corruption. Give me an account of what you have done. Ibn Ziyad says, oh, there's no way I can escape the adala of Amirul Mu'mineen. He switches sides and goes over to Muawiyah. Even the Ma'soom Imams did not have perfect wakils. Some people are good to start with. Later on, they can become corrupt, but that should not be the reason. Therefore, I dismiss the mujtahid. So, if we do have to make taqleed of the most learned, my present demonstration of the Masail of Hajj will be based on the fatwa of these two mujtahids. Marhum Hazrat Ayatullah Sayyid Abul Qasim al-Khoi rahmatullah alayh, as the deceased, the most learned of the deceased, compared to even the living. And Hazrat Ayatullah Sistani, hafidhahullah, amongst the living as the most learned. But if anyone amongst you is in the taqleed of any third mujtahid or fourth or more, please inform me, so next time I will add the variations wherever they are there in the masail according to these other mujtahids. Please feel free to communicate. So now we begin this journey of Hajj. We said Hajj only becomes wajib when you are capable. If you have enough wealth, if you have health, if the path is open, the facilities are available, Hajj is wajib. Lakini, that is looking at Hajj from my perspective. But my question is, where did I get the wealth and the health and the accessibility to the path from? Hajj has become wajib because I have earned and I've got enough. Or no, there's a higher power who has capacitated me to have enough wealth and health and the accessibility of the path. He has arranged to call me. Yes, Hajj has become wajib because I've got wealth. My earning, or I've been enriched by someone. Yes, I've received a gift, but who has softened the heart of that donor to come and give you the gift? Who is calling you? Yes, I'm going for Hajj because I've got the health and the physical ability. Yes, but who has invigorated and energized you to have this good health? Somebody is calling you. Somebody is arranging for you. Yes, I'm going for Hajj because I've got enough time and there are no constraints. Yes, but who has enabled you to have enough time? I'm going to Hajj because it is wajib, because there are no restrictions. The road is not closed. Syria, the Hujjaj are not being accepted, for example. Ebola countries, Hujjaj not accepted, for example. No restrictions. Who has lifted the restrictions? that I should be able to go for Hajj. I'm being invited and cleared for traveling. Yes, I'm healthy and wealthy and all the restrictions are lifted. But do I have any other more important obligations? Obligations, let's say, with my employer. Obligations towards my family. Wajib, more wajib that I need to attend to. Who has facilitated that I have no overriding, more important obstacle preventing me from Hajj? Yes, everything is available. Who has influenced my heart to want to go for Hajj, to desire, to make the necessary effort for Hajj? Who has lifted the inhibitions and given the appropriate motivation? And who has ultimately facilitated the Hajj? So the most important thing, therefore, as we begin this journey for Hajj is to sincerely thank and appreciate that مَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever ni'mah we have, whether it's wealth or health or all the other facilities, all ultimately it comes from Allah and Allah alone. And He is now the host and He is inviting us to become the guest. So one important rule that you need to keep in mind, and that is ruling number 39 in the rulings about Hajj, that once a person becomes financially capable of going for Hajj, then between the time of financial capability till the time of actually going for Hajj, it is now haram to spend that money elsewhere in such a way that you decapacitate yourself from going for Hajj. It's very logical. The Mawla, the Master, the Provider, the Host has invited you. And now purposely, deliberately, you go and waste away that opportunity. Haram. You'll be questionable. You'll be answerable. Unless, of course, it is unavoidable. Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani says that it is not necessary to save that same amount of money for Hajj. Some mujtahids say it is wajib to save if by spending this money at the time of Hajj I will not be able to compensate. But no, it is not wajib for me to save if I'm sure that by the time for Hajj comes, I can always compensate. So no problem, I can spend my savings. If I have spent it away, I'm sinful. And not only am I sinful, I am under obligation now. Next year I must go for Hajj, even if it is more difficult, even if it's more expensive, even if I have to join another group where I may have to pay lesser amount because that's the only amount I could save next year, and the facilities are not as good as, for example, the group that I could have joined the previous year when I had enough money. This is now a punishment, whereby it is definitely wajib to go even under difficult circumstances. But however, I try to save, but for some reasons beyond my control, that wealth or that cash or that financial ability was destroyed either before Hajj or during Hajj or after Hajj. Then the fatwa is, if before Hajj you did your best to save your money, but it got lost or partly was stolen or partly was damaged or partly was not delivered to you when it was supposed to be delivered to you, you lent it to someone, it was necessary for you to lend it to someone, but he promised, definitely before Hajj I'll pay you back. Suddenly he says, Samahani, I can't pay you back. If it's beyond your control, you're excused, Hajj is not wajib for you this year. Next year you'll have to check. If you do develop the means, then it is wajib. Unlike the previous situation, purposely you destroyed it, you must go for Hajj under whatever circumstances. No, you accidentally, beyond your control, lost the money. Either before Hajj, no, during Hajj, you've begun the trip. During the Hajj, on the way, you made an agreement with the caravan, I'm paying half now, half I'll pay later on, I'm expecting payment. For some reason, beyond your control, halfway through the Hajj, you've reached Medina, or you've already worn the ihram, you're on the way to Mecca. No, you've finished your Umrah. Any point before the completion of Hajj, you lose the means beyond your control of completing the Hajj. Hajj is not wajib. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu it is only wajib if you have enough cash to take you to Hajj and make you do the Hajj and bring you back. If for whatever reason, beyond your control, partly or fully it gets lost, it means therefore Hajj was not wajib on you. So now I know I am financially capable and spiritually invited to go for Hajj, and I know which mujtahid to follow. So I want to now begin my Hajj. But usually our Hajj caravans, they don't begin Hajj by taking us to Makkah directly. We could go to Jeddah, enter into Ihram and proceed to Makkah and do the Umrah to Tamattu' and proceed for Hajj to Tamattu', and then on return we come to Medina. Usually we start off our journey early in the end, last week of the Qa'dah, spend some time in Medina, then we proceed to Makkah. Therefore, as a beginning, I would like to give some guidelines about our stay in Medina. Some things are wajib, some things are mustahab. I will concentrate on that which is wajib in Medina, in the holy city of Medina, Medina of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why is it sacred? Why is it holy? Why is it blessed? Because the most blessed of God's creatures and servants and messengers decided to make hijrah away from Makkah and to come and settle. And once he settled here, he decided not to go back to Makkah, though Makkah was surrendered in the 8th year of Hijrah. After completion of the Umrah in that year, the Prophet did not decide to continue to stay in Makkah. He came back to Medina. In the 10th year of Hijrah, he went back for Hajj. He did not decide to stay in Makkah, which was his birthplace. He could have decided to continue to stay there now that it has converted fully to Islam. He decided to come back to Medina. The earth where the holiest of the bodies is buried, that earth becomes holy. Indeed, we are told that the area of the grave of the Prophet is even holier than the Kaaba, because the best of the creations is buried there. Medina is holy because of the Medina to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And it is holy because this is the place where that final message, the message of power, of grace, of mercy, of justice, of kindness, of wisdom, the Quran was revealed in Medina. Parts of the Quran were revealed in Medina. Look at all these surahs. Surah Baqarah 2, Ali Imran 3, Nisa 4, Ma'idah 5. All revealed in Medina. Surah Anfal 8, Surah Tawbah 9, Surah Hajj chapter 22, Surah Nur chapter 24, Surah Ahzab 33, Surah Shura 42 onwards. These were holy surahs revealed in Medina, and therefore it's a holy place. It is holy because one of the holiest mosques in the whole Muslim world is located there, Masjid al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Masjid Quba, which is mentioned in the Quran. It is holy and sacred because the Ma'sumeen alayhimus salam are also buried there in Jannatul Baqi', and also it is the place where they always prefer to stay. Notice all the Imams. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam was forced to shift his headquarters away from Medina to Kufa because of political reasons. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, after the assassination of his father and after the desertion of the army, he came back to Medina. Abu Abdullah alayhi salam stayed in Medina till the end. Those 10 years he was in Medina. It is in the Rajab of the 60th year of Hijrah that he is forced to make Hijrah away from Medina to go to Makkah. And all the other Imams, when allowed, they always preferred to stay in Medina near the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not even in Mecca. Allahumma inni as'aluka mujibati rahmatik, the dua of Salat al-Maghrib. What do we say towards the end? وَجِوَارِ نَبِيِّكَ sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. I seek the neighborhood and the proximity of your chosen servant, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. They lived and they died in the company of the Prophet. So it's a holy land. And of course, there are famous Muhajirin, pious, righteous, God-fearing Muhajirin and Ansar who are buried there in Medina. And yes, Those brave martyrs of the Battle of Uhud are buried, some of them in Baqi'. They came back wounded and they died in Medina, buried in Baqi'. Some of them are buried in the battleground of Uhud, in the outskirts. And of course, Medina is holy and sacred because our du'as are accepted, our problems are solved, we get shifa for our illnesses. And of course, ultimately we hope for shafa'ah of the holy beings who are there. So the challenge we have now is how to plan our stay in Medina such that we make it the best time we have in our lifetime. This is an aerial picture of the mosque of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just to give you an orientation, I'll bring my cursor down here. I'm sorry, I can't. But look at the mosque on the right side of the screen in the middle. That's the original mosque of the Prophet, and away from there is the Jannatul Baqi'. That is the original mosque. The rest is all an expansion which has taken place over time in history, and this is the latest expansion. Now the question is, once I'm in Medina, there is a wajib rule about salah that I must observe, and that is, I'm a musafir in Medina. As a musafir, according to the Quran, Surah Nisa, ayah number 100, Allah says, when you are traveling, you must make qasr. 4 rak'ah prayers, you must pray as 2. Dhuhr and Asr and Isha. Salatul Subh is already 2 rak'ah. Salatul Maghrib, there is no qasr. It will be prayed as 3. So the wajib rule that you must remember about the salah in the Medina, city of Medina, or in the Masjidul Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is the rule about qasr. There's a lot of reward for praying salah in the Masjid of the Prophet. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is reported to have said, Salatun fi masjidi. One prayer, just one salah. Whether it's a wajib prayer or a mustahab prayer, doesn't matter. Whether it's your ada or qaza, doesn't matter. It's a salah. You pray in this mosque of mine, he says, ta'dilu. It is equal to alf salat fima siwahu. Equal to 1,000 prayers elsewhere. Now you count at the rate of 5 salah a day. 1,000 salah is 200 days of salah elsewhere, just by one salah. That's almost 2/3 of 1 year prayer by one salah. That's one riwayah. Another riwayah says no. 10,000 salah fima siwaha. One salah in my mosque is equivalent to 10,000 salah elsewhere. So that's almost 2/3 times 10. How much would that be? Sorry? 4 years of prayers, one salah. So definitely we should not miss the chance to pray all our salah or most of our salah, be it the wajib ada, be it the wajib qaza, be it the mustahab, in the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Lakini, the rule is, can I complete, then I'll allow you to ask a question. The ruling about the qasr and the tamam is that some mujtahid said this: in Medina you have a choice to pray full instead of qasr. You have a choice. It is not wajib to pray full. You have a choice. You can pray full even though you are a musafir. But where? In Medina. Some say only in the masjid. Some say no, only in the old part, the old Masjidul Nabi. Some say no, not the masjid, even the old city of Medina. You're allowed to have the choice to pray half and full. But most of the other mujtahids, Marhumatul Akhui, rahmatullah alayhi, said no, the choice is only in the old city of Medina. Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani says no, the choice of praying full applies not only to the masjid, not only to the old masjid, not only to the old city of Medina, the whole city of Medina, even the new expanded areas of Medina. The choice exists. And when, which salah, and when, which part of the day you are allowed this choice? The fatwa of the mujtahid is any day. You stay for 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, less than 10 days in Medina, any day you have the choice. So one day you pray full, next day you pray half. Third day you pray full, fourth day half. Doesn't matter, the choice is there. It's not that once you start full, you always must pray full. Or once you start half, you must always pray half. No, the choice is for any day and every day. In fact, you have the choice in any one day for a double prayer. Dhuhr you pray full, Asr you pray half. No problem, you're allowed that choice. No, in fact, even the same prayer, Dhuhr, you can start with the niyyah of tamam and halfway shift and switch it to qasr, no problem. You can start with the niyyah of qasr and switch it to tamam. The choice is for every day, for all double prayers, for every prayer. Kwa nini? If you remember what I said, Hajj is wajib when I'm wealthy and healthy and I have all the restrictions lifted. You are wealthy, you are healthy, or somebody has enriched you and invigorated you and capacitated you and facilitated you. You are a guest. You are coming to the house of your father, the Prophet. If the wives of the Prophet are ummahatul mu'minin, they are the mothers of the believers. So the Prophet is not the father of the believers. This is my hometown. I'm going back to my father's place. Therefore, in that honor, perhaps that's the reason I'm allowed the choice of praying full salah to get more thawab. The importance of the Masjid al-Nabi, inshallah, we'll discuss that in a later session. I saw a hand rising up. Please, if you have any questions for clarifications. Yes. According to Hazrat al-Sistani, it refers to the whole of the masjid and Marumatul Akhoy, yes. Hazrat al-Bahjat used to say, no, it's the old masjid. Any questions from the ladies, please? Clarifications? Yes, please. That's correct. Qaza. No, you get the thawab. Not that 1,000 qaza prayers are forgiven. Yes, please. Yes. Only the old city of Medina. Marhum Hazrat al-Akhoy rahmatullah alayh, his fatwa was the choice between qasr and tamam applies only to the old city of Medina. So the old city of Medina, for example, beyond Jannatul Baqi would be outside Medina. Or the Al-Awali neighborhood in Medina will be beyond now, the outskirts of Medina. So once we are there, we will tell you where most probably were the boundaries of old Medina. Yes. According to some scholars, Hazrat al-Akhoy used to make ihtiyat, not a fatwa. If it's ihtiyat, then on this masala you can make ruju to Hazrat al-Sistani, who allows for the whole city of Medina. I'm trying to be careful about the time. We promised that it's going to be 7:30 to 8:30. So I will not. I've got the temptation to continue, but I will not. I would like to finish the Masail about prayers, but it's quite long because I want to discuss So now if I want to go to the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, therefore I have to, and I want to pray the wajib salah, therefore I have to join the jama'ah. What are the rules of joining salatul jama'ah? In the Masjidul Nabi and later on in Masjidul Haram. But because it's a lengthy discussion, at least 10-15 minutes, inshallah we'll discuss that tomorrow. Let's pray to Allah for tawfiq to be able to undertake this journey with proper recognition that we are honored, we are blessed, we are chosen, we have been called, we have been invited as the special guests of God. Inasmuch as He has already capacitated us now, He definitely as a host will give us His best hospitality to become better and better human beings, insha'Allah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.